Thank you. Always kind of strange for me to come and speak, and bear with me because I can't speak as well as I'd like to. But
You're a little tall.
sorry. If you told me 16, 18 years ago when I was in high school that I'd be an author of a book, I think I'd be like, you're crazy. Language arts, I got an A in it, but it wasn't my favorite class to take, so that's right. Like you said, I have Parkinson's disease. I had it for 14 years now, and it's been a wild ride. But I was born in Hillsboro, born in Salem, raised in Hillsboro, and I grew up in this community and know things and outs everywhere, and I've been downtown, of course, but it's a pretty cool place. I'm actually not going to read. I brought my wife along to speak it for me. It would be a lot better. But the whole idea of my book, 40,001, it came out. I had the deep brain stimulation surgery, which they go into your head and they implant these electrodes to try to help your symptoms and whatnot, and it really helped me. But I had done twice. The first time I had a massive infection and I was died, and I was in the hospital for 12 days, and it was a rough time. I struggled quite a bit with just what my purpose and like what life had in store for me. Because at one point in the hospital, I couldn't feed myself. I was totally inept. It was very very crazy experience that I wish none of you can go through. It was bad. But I got through it, and I just felt like I needed to share my story, that I had some stuff that can really help some people. And so I read the book, and so I came with the book. I wrote a couple chapters. I'm not a writer, and I presented to a couple publishers, and after a 45-minute conversation with the publisher in California, they went on to your book. And so, but long story short, with the economy and whatnot, he has an internet publishing company that folded, but he loved my idea, my book, my story so much that he basically wrote it with me. His name's Scott Brown. He's the co-author of the book, very talented writer, and I'm very grateful for all he's done for me. So the book came out, and it's been crazy successful on Amazon, and it was on the New York Times bestseller list for a week, and pretty cool. It's been a really neat experience, and my wife come here and read a couple stories for me. The 40,001 title is when I played in baseball was my world. I had 40,000 roughly fans a day. In my life. And when I retired and got married and had a kid, I became the caregiver for the child while my wife worked. And so she was my one focus. So I went from 40,000 fans to one. So that's the title. And it's a book of short stories, my life, more or less. Whichever more of my life, you kind of went through it. So I kind of read it.
Okay, so I'm Kelly and I'm his wife, and of course he picks, the emotional one to read the emotional chapter, so, bear with me. I'm going to read the chapter called Night Become Us, and I think it speaks for itself, but just to kind of preface it a little bit, my husband's life has, see, here I go. No, it's been miraculous. I've been able to celebrate his success on a big league field, and I've been able to experience success in raising two daughters. And and now we're on this wonderful journey to spread awareness for Parkinson's. And it affects so many lives, and it really affects the caregiver's life. So now that's our mission. Okay, here we go. My 4-year-old daughter's voice woke me up at 2:30 recently. This is in Ben's voice, by the way. It was a moment I've been waiting for since the day she was born. At night, I don't take any medication for my Parkinson's disease because in the long run, it makes my symptoms worse. Pre-surgery, this was my routine. Bedtime typically came around 9:30 p.m. with me dressed in a sleep workout shirt and shorts. For Parkinson's patients, our sleeping hours require as much careful negotiation as our waking ones. And something as seemingly unthreatening as a blanket can become quite complicated. I wore the silky clothes to eliminate as much friction as possible. The night usually began pretty innocently. The medication that kept my body limber during the day was typically still working when I climbed in bed, and I'd fall asleep within seconds of closing my eyes. Days spent in perpetual movement, followed by claustrophobic nights where I could not move at all, created a level of insane exhaustion. Before surgery, I went about 4 years without so much as one recuperative night's sleep. This is something they never tell you about in chronic illness. That you can get to the point where you feel like you might collapse under your own fatigue. I'd sleep heavily for 2 to 3 hours, and then the dynamic part of my sleep would begin. By that point, my medication would have completely worn off, with dystonia, which is a cramping throughout your body, setting in as I laid there rigid as a plank, save for my arms shaking by my sides. In super slow motion, I'd reach for an anti-anxiety pill on my nightstand, which I discover through trial and error could sometimes relax me and my cramping muscles enough to get back to sleep. Occasionally I get back to sleep, but most of the time self-loathing would take its place. My mind would take a tour of the scenarios in which I'd be totally helpless. A robber, an earthquake, alien abduction. Sleep or no sleep, I was fully awake by 3 or 4 a.m. If I had to relieve myself, I'd roll out, fall out of bed, and crawl to the bathroom. My toddler could walk herself to the bathroom, but I had to crawl. My brain was now fully turned on, with Parkinson's following like a tail on a kite. Within minutes, dystonia would curl my bare feet into little fists. Michael J. Fox taught me a trick to deal with this point. Put on your patent leather dress shoes to make your feet lie flat. With that 10-minute task accomplished, my next destination was my recliner chair, a mere 100 feet and one treacherous stairwell away. Once down the steps, I'd pass by my office full of baseball memorabilia, including the sign that once hung in the Rockies weight room that reads, "The vision of a champion is someone who is bent over, drenched in sweat, at the point of exhaustion, when nobody else is watching." Yet there I stood with no one watching, feeling distinctly unlike a champion. I'd fall like a cut-down tree into the recliner, inch my finger toward the remote control, and search for a distraction until 6 a.m. Sitting in the new day's gloaming, I could finally take my medicine, then feel it warm the toes of my left foot like the sun rising over a basin. I craved that sensation. I was an addict for sure. Dyskinesia, the uncontrolled movements from Sinemet, the main medication for Parkinson's, would soon follow, sending my hands flailing and my head rolling. Before long, I'd be negotiating the unique challenges of a Parkinson's sufferer, including buttoning my shirt, pouring milk, and holding the phone. But for those first few minutes, when those 2 little pills would take hold, it was euphoric. I was still a young man sitting in a room away from his pro baseball jerseys framed in glass, basking in the wiggling of his toes. This nighttime drill meant leaving to my wife the investigation of all the bumps in the night. As I lay there like a slab, useless and half of a man, eventually my kid learned to call for only her mom when she needs most fathers think about walking their daughters down the aisle. I only dreamed of walking mine back to bed. Since my second deep brain stimulation surgery, I'd improved enough that even when I was off my medication, I was still able to walk around, get food and drinks, and do all the little things my daughter asked of me. But I hadn't had the chance to do the one thing I'd always wanted to. On this particular night, I woke up and heard McKenna walking down the hallway. The sound of her footsteps sent me into action. As I'd rehearsed this event a million times in my head, I got up and walked to our door, where I met her with a shh. She had her little turtle nightlight, which was emitting tiny glowing spirals that set off her sparkly Tinkerbell pajamas. True story. Her hair was a massive confusion of yellow curls. Just looking at her for the first time in that confused middle of the night moment, I felt my heart lift. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Can't sleep," she replied. "Just can't." I took her hand in mine and escorted her back to her room. I laid down with her nose to nose. "Close your eyes," I said. "Try to go back to sleep with me." She did this for about 2 minutes, and then for the next hour, she tickled my face as I pretended to sleep. I finally surrendered and made my 4:30 a.m. march downstairs, and this time with her in my arms. We got some cereal, folded our bodies into my chair, watched Tangled, and for 2 hours were a thicket of giggles. Parkinson's has stolen so much from us. I don't pretend to understand the riddle of this disease, but I do know it met me where I was and didn't leave me where I found it. There's no way I'd have understood the awesomeness of a seemingly fractional moment like this, one without Parkinson's, without having my first DBS surgery fail to the extent that I almost lost my life. I used to think of that being a champion dependent on what I did when nobody else was watching, and now I know it's about what I do before the eyes of one. A little over a year ago, through the fog of infection in another world where I was more diseased than man, I sent out tiny prayers to God, like those streams of light from my tiny daughter's toy, begging for one more chance to be this little girl's father. There we sat as night became day. I smoothed her hair, I smelled her neck, I heard her laugh, I closed my eyes, and I said, "Thank you." So I think my husband's book is a little bit different than everyone else's here, just in the sense that our story is still being written. And so I'm hoping that we can have a sequel that is quite different than this book. Because there are happy moments in this book, but there are also real emotional downers as well. But hopefully, after you get done reading it, it will give you a little slice of what not to take for granted and those wonderful things that we all need to cherish every day. So thank you.